Welcome back to the Lost Cause Ranch. If you haven't been following along, a couple months ago we went ahead and purchased an old defunct car wash. And we are converting that car wash into our little Land Rover workshop. But we really can't get rid of all the building's car wash roots. That is right. Today's project is to install a little bit of car wash back into the old car wash. And that is where this fancy piece of equipment comes into play. The longtime watchers on here may remember that Ted and I used to have ourselves a little independent European dealership / service center. And at that dealership, we had a pretty slick little pressure washer set up. And in my obvious foresight, I knew years down the road I would buy a car wash and need a pretty nice setup once again. So we kept it. Careful. I was pretty proud of this setup at our old shop. If I can find a picture, I'll throw it up here. But the center of that setup was this pretty frickin' baller Mighty M electric pressure washer. This thing is just a frickin' powerhouse and has water volume for days and is specifically set up for washing cars at that 1,000 PSI of pressure. We could do something with 3,000+ PSI, but we don't need to be stripping paint off the old Land Rovers. Our old setup was dialed for car washing, which was necessary when we were selling and servicing a bunch of cars. Everything that came into the shop got washed after service. And as it turns out, I still have a lot of vehicles to this day, so it's gonna come in handy once again. Now you may remember we did hang this mounting bracket at the shop at the ranch, but we never mounted the pressure washer because we didn't actually have the water hooked up to the shop. Well, here at the car wash, we kind of have a similar problem, albeit a little less dramatic. Ironically enough, even though this side had a couple wash bays, we still need to get water on this end of the building. Good news is, I think we have enough coming into the building to make that happen. But first things first, we need to get the pressure washer sitting where it's gonna sit, so we know where to go with the water. Now that thing is a tank, so we need to make sure this is nice and secure. I mean, it probably weighs dang near 2 of me. So being it was a car wash previously, we obviously have plenty of water running elsewhere, which is very nice because we are gonna be able to rob that copper line right there and repurpose it and use it to get over to the pressure washer. And also in that process, we're gonna get rid of this frickin' wavy PEX line that is just running through the office in a mighty annoying fashion. Wrong size. Epitome of safety going on here. Oh, was not expecting that. Poor Freelander. Well, there was a mess I didn't intend on making. Poor little Freelander got doused. Good thing the roof was on. New swimming pool. I'll be honest, I didn't intend on needing the pressure washer set up to clean the G4 doors. Perfect piece. So that yielded a fair amount of copper. I think we might even be able to get away without having to buy any, because I also have one Joe size piece left over from another project. That's awful nice because this stuff at the moment feels like it is the equivalent of about like $100 a foot. I mean, I think it's really like $5 a foot. You're using lots of feet, adds up. All right, I got it. So we got a little, so it may not go back on with the garage door in the way. Plenty of room. Now it seems that every project, at least any good project, needs at least one trip to Menards. It's too bad our little store doesn't have what we need. And I think we should be able to make something happen with this stuff. So we're getting our handy dandy plumbing supplies out, and hopefully I'll be able to handle this. I guess the good news is soldering is just like welding, but different. I mean, as you can see, pretty much an expert. So we got a nicer looking copper line ran across, and we're gonna try and attempt not to burn the building down, and an old license plate works well for that. No fire, and the wood looks fine. Plate, not so much. I can't even express at how happy I am that that ugly, blue, wavy piece of plastic is no longer in here. Doesn't it look so much better? So we made it that far up there. We have one problem though. There happens to be a wall in the way. We can actually pass through the wall now with the piece. And what do you know? It even fits. Hopefully it all works out. There we go. We just need a little persuasion is all. And we're getting within the vicinity over here. All right, we gotta go fishing here. Get this guy over the garage door. That's a much easier process on the ground versus on top of a ladder up here. It is kind of nice that the ceiling's only 12 feet tall here versus the 21 at the peak at the old shop. I guess it's really only nice for my fear of heights. We now have some water in the vicinity. We're at the point where we got to start adding some of the fun stuff. As you saw a little bit ago, we have the pressure washer hose reel mounted. Have that nice and low. You know, I'm gonna either have to blast a ton more light in the shop to counteract those, or maybe shade them somehow, but I really do like the natural light they bring in. But the problem we have here is if I face the camera at the door, everything that isn't the door gets super dark sometimes. If you have any suggestions on how to counteract that, I'm all ears. I noticed it's even worse if I'm wearing a black shirt on top of everything. But either way, we have our pressure washer reel mounted nice and low. I just found that's easier when you're dragging the hose around cars and wheels and whatnot. But in this blank part of the wall, we need to get water fed to the machine. We got a couple hose bibs. I'll explain what those are for a little bit later. Feeder hose, even though it's green, and we got blue. It's gonna look a little ugly until I find something else. But the first thing that needs to go is a water filter. We're gonna try and keep the water as clean as possible going into the machine. We added one at the water main coming into the shop. This will be a secondary one just to filter it more before it goes to washing cars. On the previous setup, we had a deionizer that gave super pure water when we went to rinse. No water spots or anything. I may add one of those in the future, but I'm thinking a different route being we still have this guy from when it was a car wash. This is a massive reverse osmosis system. I want to get a hold of the company and see what I got to do to get this thing functioning again. To be honest, I don't know what I'm looking at, so it could be missing too much to make it financially feasible. But if not, I'm thinking we get that set up, then up on the wall above the pressure washer over on the side here, we do like a 50-gallon tank, and we'd have some gravity-fed spotless rinse right to the machine. Because let me tell you, there is nothing better than having your own spotless rinse setup. Once you've had it in the past, sucks to lose it. So the inlet and the outlet on the filter are obviously spaced away from the wall, so we need to get our feed line pushed out to make that happen. And we'll reverse that on this side to get the outlet tucked right back up against the wall. So we need like a 2 3/4 piece. So I'm down here at ground level and ready to mount this guy to the wall, but I can't seem to find the little hammer drill anywhere. You know, because I always seem to set stuff in the dumbest spot ever. Now we can spin the other side on and finish this guy out. Clean up that mess I made, and Bob's your uncle. This little T is gonna shoot up the feed for the pressure washer. Not my best work. And we're on our last joint to solder here. And there we go. Would you look at that? We got a nice, clean looking install going on. Got our filter into our feed to the pressure washer and our 2 hose bibs that I talked about earlier. This one on the left is just gonna go to a normal garden hose, you know, in case we need to go gardening. Now the one on the right is kind of a cool little guy. I do need to adjust the length. We want it about a foot shorter, so it's about a foot off the ground. But what that guy is a dedicated bucket filler. You put your soap in and you just go ahead and crank the water on, and you can walk away. If you're ever gonna do a wash setup, that is one of the nicest features you could add. And just look at how easy that is. Just went ahead and put a hook on the side for the wand. And another nice thing you can do to make your life better if you're doing a pressure washer setup is get yourself an aftermarket gun. This one is an MTM with a shorter wand. Here's the factory one. This is a big boy. This guy, much easier to use, and even better, this one is set up to switch over to a little stubby guy. Invaluable when you're doing wheels and stuff like that. See if this guy works. I mean, who are we kidding? Getting the Freelander cleaned up for the trip is the real reason why we spent the time to get the pressure washer going. But the volume of water that Mighty M pressure washer puts out is what gets us that foam, and is the reason I love it. See, when you're washing cars, volume, not pressure, makes more difference in my opinion. Look at how fast it rinsed all that soap off. More on the Freelander status in just 1 minute. Man, I love the electric one. It is just nice and quiet. And then this guy also has an auto shut off. So the car wash still gets to be a little bit of a car wash. Super happy to have that guy going. Super happy to have a clean Freelander. And speaking of Freelander, we have a clean Freelander that runs without a misfire. Here's what we found. So a little update on the Freelander. We went ahead and just put 6 brand new coils in there, and that took care of our cylinder number 1 misfire. But we still have something going on with the injector on number 2, I think it was. 4, 2 or 4, one of them. It'd be 2. It was some sort of power supply issue, and I'm willing to bet the 2 wires going to the connector being bare and touching each other probably isn't helping that situation. So I just looked back, but it was number 4 that was having the injector issue, and our bare wires are on the number 2 injector plug. So I went ahead and stripped back the rear bank wire harness here just to get an eyeball of what's going on. And it looks like we have one single common ground coming into the harness, and in this connector here it ties together, splits off to the 3. So that very well could be causing an issue on number 2. We're shorting this guy out up front here. Not doing it on 1 is gonna mess with all 3. So on the next video, you guys will see the Freelander making its maiden voyage. And at that point, we'll finally get to make a determination as to whether that thing is gonna make the Rover ball and drive from New York to LA. With that being said, appreciate you guys watching, appreciate you subscribing. We will catch you on the next one. And depending on how this week goes, it may be massive. I mean, we have 3 big things coming into the shop, hoping to get it all done before New York.